strange and hungry. The sun in July is very scorching, and the scorching sunshine bakes the earth mercilessly. On the Lust Plateau, Liang Mountain, next to a bare mountain ridge slope, a male corpse was lying on the Lus. Over the male corpse, a few croaking crows hovered from time to time, sounding like they were preparing their own dinner. Slowly, as time goes by, the sun gradually sets in the west. The sunlight becomes softer, and a cool breeze blows in the air from time to time. Old man, it's getting harder and harder these days. Not far from the male corpse, two old farmers with dark skin walked over carrying hoes. Another one spat on the roadside and responded, "Yeah, I don't know what God has done to prevent it from raining even now. These days are getting more and more difficult. Clean the grass in the ground and go back and lie down quickly. Otherwise, you will be hungry again. I can no longer serve this man. Hey, what is that thing in front of me? Is it a person?" The two old farmers looked at each other and walked over quickly. One of the old men touched the neck of the male corpse with his hand and said, "There is still some energy." Another old man said, "Looking at these thin arms and legs, he probably fainted from hunger. What should we do?" The old man stood up and sighed. "What can we do? We can't open the pot ourselves. Let's get him some water. Whether he can wake up depends on his luck." After saying that, he untied a small wooden bucket from his waist, pulled out the stopper, and fed 2 mouthfuls of water into the mouth of the person on the ground. After doing this, the old man hung the small barrel back on his waist, shook his head, and said, "More and more people are escaping from the West. This world, alas." After the two farmers walked away quickly, after a while, a crow flew over and stopped next to the male corpse. It looked around and pecked hard at the delicious meal that had been hanging on the ground for a long time. "Ah, it hurts." Tam Liang Dong, the male corpse who had been lying on the ground, stood up and frightened the crow away. Tam Liang Dong sat up and rubbed his eyes with his hands and looked around. It was desolate. Looking at his body again, with thin arms and legs, Tam Liangdong's heart skipped a beat. He remembered that he was still relatively fat, but now he had lost half of his weight. What was even weirder was that Tam Liangdong could clearly feel that his body had shrunk a lot, like the body of a teenager. However, before he had time to think more, a sudden feeling of hunger came from his stomach, making Tam Liangdong feel like he was having heartburn. "Why are you so hungry?" Barely holding up his body, Tan Liangdong took a deep breath and shouted 3 times in succession, "Is there anyone there?" However, no one responded. Tan Liangdong, who did not dare to waste any more energy, took a few deep breaths and walked towards a tree not far from him. Thank God, this was a fruit tree. The fruit tree was not much taller than Tan Liangdong. He easily found several small half-red and half-green fruits hidden in the leaves. After picking the fruits in a hurry, he quickly stuffed one into his mouth. It was not as tender and juicy as expected. Tan Liangdong only felt a sour taste rushing straight to his forehead. He trembled all over and swallowed it down. After eating the fruit, the heartburning hunger was suppressed. Tan Liangdong regained some strength and finally had the opportunity to consider his situation. Tan Liangdong is now certain that something incredible happened to him. He clearly remembers that a sudden mudslide drowned him before he lost consciousness, but now he is unscathed. Coupled with the changes in his body, Tan Liangdong is a little confused. Tan Liangdong, a young man of the 21st century, a native of Shaanxi province and a mechanical engineer, went to Luliang Mountain to do mining equipment maintenance, but he encountered a heavy rain, followed by a mudslide, and was swallowed up by the man and his car. However, at this moment, Tan Liangdong didn't feel any sense of joy in surviving the disaster. The big physical changes were one of the reasons, and the sudden changes in the surrounding environment also made him feel strange. In later generations, the Lust Plateau has undergone 2 major projects, returning farmland to forest, and the 3 North Shelter Belt project. The vegetation coverage rate has basically reached 80%. In addition, it is July now, and when Tan Liangdong is working in the Luliang Mountains, corn stalks can be seen everywhere. But now, the surroundings are desolate, with sparse vegetation, and there are basically no crops in the fields that have obviously been artificially cultivated in the distance. Tam Liangdong is a careful person, and he clearly feels that the place he is now is not the Luliang Mountain where he works. What's worse is that Tam Liangdong is very hungry, and those few fruits can't satisfy his stomach at all. After thinking about it for a while, the uncomfortable feeling of hunger hits him again. Alas, after sighing, Tan Liangdong stood up under the fruit tree, suppressed his crazy hunger, and walked down the mountain. The first priority was to find a populated place and eat first, otherwise, Tan Liangdong was really afraid that he would starve to death. The mountain was not high, and the slope was gentle. Tan Liangdong quickly went down the mountain. At the foot of the mountain is a relatively wide road. Tam Liangdong follows people's footprints and walks eastward. Along the way, Tam Liangdong tried his best to control his pace, not daring to be too fast or too slow so as to save energy. Soon, a dilapidated cave dwelling appeared in front of him. It was already a little dark now, and Tam Liangdong could see a faint glow of fire from the outside. As he approached the cave dwelling, Tam Liangdong heard words with a strong Shangxi flavor. Lao Xie, we went to that small coal mine to work too hard, and the food we had was not enough for the suffering we suffered. What have you done? You tell me what you have done. Isn't it just to get a bite of food? You think you want to go to that terrible place. Tam Liangdong was from Jin province and could understand Shangxi dialect. He was just about to step into the cave when his vision went dark and he fell down. Before he lost consciousness, he could faintly hear the words, "Where did this young child come from?" After a long time, Tam Liangdong slowly regained consciousness, and the crackling sound of firewood could be heard in his ears. What came into view were two middle-aged men, wearing coarse linen clothes and long, messy hair. "Young boy, you're awake. What's going on with you?" Tam Liangdong slowly sat up and asked with some difficulty, "Do you have anything to eat?" The middle-aged man who asked the question was stunned for a moment, then turned to look at the other person. Old Wudo, this. The middle-aged man known as Lao Wudo glanced at Tan Liangdong, took out a small bowl, sprinkled a handful of millet noodles into it, then picked up the water that was boiling on the fire, made a bowl, handed it to Tam Liangdong. "Drink slowly." Tam Liangdong didn't care about burning it, let alone the musty and earthy smell coming from the batter. He drank it all in a few sips, and then looked at Lao Wudo with expectant eyes. Old Wu Tu took away the bowl and poured a bowl of hot water. "That's it, it's gone." Although the bowl of millet batter was small, it still had a lot of effect. The hunger was still there, but it was no longer so maddening. After Tan Liangdong regained consciousness, he thanked Old Wu Tu and his companions. "Thank you both for your life-saving grace." Lao Xie, Lao Wudo's companion, smiled and didn't care. But Lao Wudo waved his hand. "Don't be too busy thanking me. That thing can only be regarded as hanging on your life. If you want to have a full meal, you have to find a way yourself." Tan Liangdong nodded and said, "Master Wu is right." After that, Tan Liangdong took a sip of hot water and asked the question he wanted to know the answer to. "Master Wu, where are we now?" "As you said, we have reached the boundary of Taiyuan Prefecture. It should be at Wubao now." Taiyuan Prefecture, Wu Fort. Tam Liangdong was stunned. The place name was still the same, but why was it Taiyuan Prefecture, not Taiyuan City? Then he thought of something, and Tam Liangdong asked tremblingly, "What year is it now?" "You're asking this question. If you had asked me before, I might not have known. Now it should be the 48th year of Wanli." Old Wudo smiled proudly and said a very certain number. Lao Xie smiled and said, "Old Wudo, these are not matters that only scholarly gentlemen care about. How come you know so clearly? Is it possible that you have become a gentleman too?" Go, I'm telling you. It's Mr. Wang's house in Aozi, Yang family. Not long ago, I didn't wear hemp and mourning. I thought someone had died in Mr. Wang's family. Later, I heard the housekeeper said that the temple master had gone. At that time, I was very curious about who the temple master was and why he had such a strange name. The housekeeper told me that the temple master was the Wanli Emperor, but he had been sitting in the dragon court for 48 years. When Tan Liangdong heard 48 years of Wanli, he was stunned. Although he also looked at time travel in his spare time, that was just to look at things. He was a very mature-minded person. Even if his life in reality was not so satisfactory, he never thought about going back to the past to change anything or make great achievements. What's more, he still had his own parents, who were so easy to let go of. Coupled with the fact that he is now so hungry, even survival is a problem. "Hey, young man, what are your plans?" Lao Xie asked Tan Liangdong after teasing Lao Wu. Lao Xie was a kind man. Looking at Tan Liangdong, he felt that this young boy had escaped from famine like them, so he thought of the small coal mine he was going to and planned to let Tan Liangdong go with him. Although it was bitter, tiring, and life-threatening, he would finally be able to eat a full meal and not starve to death. Tan Liangdong came back to his senses and said a little disappointed, "I don't know anymore." Lao Xie patted Tan Liangdong on the shoulder and told him what he thought. Tan Liangdong was also hungry, so he directly agreed to Lao Xie. Lao Wu was half lying on the haystack, with a somewhat impatient look on his face. He felt that Lao Xie was too kind and had caused a big trouble for him. However, Lao Xie had been friends with him for more than 10 years. It was not easy for the two of them to escape from Shangxi to Taiyuan Prefecture together. After thinking about it, he took another look at Tan Liangdong's slender arms and legs. He looked like he was only 14 or 15 years old, and suddenly felt a little soft in his heart. Forget it if it doesn't work, just help this kid. It will probably save a life. The night was getting deeper and deeper, and Tan Liangdong, who had calmed down a little, lay half on the haystack, suppressing those thoughts that he shouldn't have deeply in his heart. Now, the most important thing is to survive first. As for the other things, we will talk about it later. Chapter 2:2 Coal Kills Miners. Wubao is located on the border of Shamshi and Shangxi, close to the Yellow River. Wubao in the Ming Dynasty occupies a vast area. Its jurisdiction includes Wubao, Lulin, Fangshan, and part of Linxian in later generations. There is also a military crossing of the Yellow River within the territory. This area was later called the Huishi Coalfield and was famous for being rich in shallow coal and open-pit coal. At this time, most of the local people in Wubao were engaged in coal mining and selling coal as a side job. Due to backward technology, the local coal mining industry was mainly privately owned, with mostly small coal mines. They avoided the mining supervisors sent by Emperor Wanli to the big mines all over the world. They did not have to pay mining taxes, and their income was very generous. The place where Tan Liangdong is now located is called Yangjiaozi. There is a Wang family, which is a branch of the Wang family in Taiyuan. The Wang family of the Yang family's Aozi seized half of the small coal mines in Wubao with the help of tiger skins from the clan of Taiyuan Prefecture, earning hundreds of dollars a day. They also took advantage of the severe drought in Shangxi and Shangxi to engage in loan sharking and loan sharking to embezzle land. In just 1 year, they became the largest landowners in Wubao. And what Lao Xie was going to take Lao Wudo and Tan Liangdong to was a small coal mine owned by the Wang family. Originally, according to government rules, refugees of unknown origin like Tan Liangdong were to be imprisoned and sent back to their place of origin. However, there was a severe drought in Shangxi and Shangxi, and the food harvest in northern Shangxi last year was poor. In order to beg for food, many people from various states and counties ran out. Most of them went to southern Shangxi, and a small number entered Shangxi. At the beginning, the government also established a Kana people, but as the refugee team grew, the government was afraid of provoking a popular uprising. As long as the refugees did not gather around the county, they would turn a blind eye and pretend they had not seen it. Tan Liangdong and the other three came to a small coal mine. Looking from below, the mines were dark. Lao Xie had been working for a while and knew the manager. He explained his purpose to the manager with a flattering smile. The steward looked at old Wu, who was quite strong and a hard worker, and nodded. He looked at Tan Liangdong again. He was a thin and frail kid with hair that hadn't fully grown yet. He frowned and said, This little kid also wants to dig coal? Lao Xie quickly replied, Yes, yes, this little kid is with us. Huh, Lao Xie, you know the rules here. If you don't dig 30 baskets a day, you won't have food. Can this little kid dig enough? Can you two guarantee it? Tan Liangdong saw the steward's suspicious look on his face, and just as he was about to step forward to say a few words, old Wu Tu said directly, I can guarantee it. How do you guarantee it? Okay, you three, 100 baskets a day. If you don't dig enough, you won't have food to eat. You! The manager was obviously making things difficult for others, and Tan Liangdong was angry. Lao Xie grabbed Tan Liangdong, and Lao Wu said to the steward, Okay, but you have to take care of our meal first. Okay. After the steward finished speaking, he called a supervisor next to him who was holding a whip and gave a few instructions in a low voice. The supervisor looked at Tan Liangdong and the others and shook his whip. On the way to eat, Lao Santu whispered to Tan Liangdong, Boy, have you seen those people with whips? This place is not a kind place. Watch your mouth and tolerate it as long as you can. Don't hurt us both. Lao Xie also nodded and said, You have to remember what Lao Santu said. People are humble when they leave their hometown. It would be good if they can have something to eat. Tan Liangdong almost lost control just now, and he was also startled. Now he is the meat on someone else's chopping board, and he can be manipulated by others. If something goes wrong, he will be in big trouble. He solemnly nodded and said, I will remember what you two brothers said. The three of them received 3 steamed buns with millet noodles and a bowl of millet porridge, respectively. Tan Liangdong was already starving and finished the food in 3 mouthfuls, ignoring the faint musty smell. After eating, Tan Liangdong felt much better, and his body gradually regained some strength. During the meal, Lao Xie briefly talked to Tan Liangdong about things to pay attention to. The small coal kiln owned by the Wang family is an open-pit coal mine. The coal seam is only a few meters deep underground. It can be said that there is coal underground for miles around the small coal kiln. There are a total of about 20 mines in the small coal mine, and each mine can accommodate up to 3 people at a time. Usually, a veteran will lead a newcomer. The veteran will find a place to dig, and the newcomer will be responsible for transporting the coal out. Digging coal in a mine is very dangerous. In this era, where protective measures are rarely taken, and the Wang family is a privately owned small coal kiln, there are almost no pillars in the mine. Therefore, it is extremely important to choose a coal mining spot, otherwise it will easily cause the mine to collapse. In Wubao, only those who really can't survive will choose to dig coal, and the pay for each coal dig cannot be low. But now, refugees from Shaanxi basically choose to dig coal in order to have a bite of food and a way to survive. The Wang family was extremely harsh on the refugee miners. They would not give them food if they did not dig 30 baskets of coal every day. They also set a rule that as long as they came to the mine, everyone must dig 30 baskets, otherwise they would have to wait for the supervisor's whip. As for the reward, the mine manager said that giving the refugees a bite of food was already a great good deed by the Wang family. After eating, the 3 of them received an iron pickaxe and a bamboo basket from the supervisor. Before entering the mine, Lao Xie took Lao Wudo and Tan Liangdong and knelt down at the entrance of the mine. He muttered, Please God bless the disciples. Everything will go smoothly when going into the mine this time. Please God bless you. After kowtowing 3 times, Lao Xie stood up, gave Lao Wudo and Tan Liangdong a few words, and led the way into the mine. As we go deeper, the mine becomes darker and darker. Tan Liangdong's predecessor had done mining equipment maintenance and had descended into wells 200 to 300 meters deep, but he was not as uncomfortable as drilling this mine. At the back, the mine was so narrow that Tan Liangdong could only crawl forward. Broken coal and stones were everywhere in the cave, which was painful. After climbing a certain distance, Lao Xie's voice came from the front. Okay, that's it. Old Wu moved his head and said, It's dark and bluish, but it's a pity that it can't be lit. Tan Liangdong said, You can't light a fire. There is something in the mine that will explode when exposed to open fire. Tan Liangdong originally wanted to say gas, but he thought that he was no longer in the 21st century. The word gas was an imported product, and no one knew the transliteration of methane in this era. Yes, I didn't expect Liangdong to know this. You two follow me, I dig, and you pretend. The mine was so narrow that Tan Liangdong couldn't even turn around. After filling a basket, his waist couldn't bear it. I persisted and filled 3 baskets, pushing the bamboo baskets while climbing along the original path. After finally reaching the relatively open terrain of the mine, Tan Liangdong sat directly on the ground and gasped, "Let me slow down for a while. I can't move anymore." "Just a moment. There are 100 baskets today, so there is no time to delay." Old Wu Tu gasped slightly. After resting for a while, Lao Wudo and Lao Xie fumbled for Tan Liangdong to carry the bamboo basket on his back and walked out of the mine. After leaving the mine and verifying the quantity of the basket with the supervisor, Tan Liangdong sat down on the ground. He was tired. All the muscles in his body were trembling, and his hands and feet were numb. When the supervisor saw Tan Liangdong sitting there motionless, he whipped the whip to the ground in front of him and shouted, "What are you doing? Why don't you dig it up quickly? Do you want to be beaten?" Tan Liangdong was startled by the whip, jumped up quickly, picked up the bamboo basket on his back, and walked towards the mine, silently saying in his heart, "I can bear it, I can bear it." After getting through the initial fatigue, Tan Liangdong gradually adapted to such high-strength heavy work. The 3 of them worked until late at night, and finally collected 100 baskets and received meals from the steward. 3 millet noodle steamed buns, and a bowl of millet for each person. The 3 of them, who had been tired for the whole day, took 1 steamed bun in each mouthful and swallowed it with water. Keep the millet, boil it in hot water, and eat it as porridge to make you feel fuller. This is what Lao Xie told Tan Liangdong. In the long-term escape life, every grain of food may be life-saving food, and no one dares to waste it. In this way, Tan Liangdong temporarily worked in the small coal kiln. The 3 people's workload of 100 baskets a day made Tan Liangdong very tired every day, and he fell asleep after eating. Time passed very quickly, and 2 months passed in the blink of an eye. Tan Liangdong, who was originally thin and frail, became lean, and his fair skin became dark. At the same time, more and more miners are coming to work in small coal mines, and the supervision of coal mines is becoming more and more strict. Only entry and exit are allowed in the entire coal mine. Any miner who dares to go out privately will be whipped back by the supervisor. All miners eat and live in the coal mine. Tan Liangdong took the opportunity to chat with the miners during the mining break and learn some about the situation of the Wang coal mine from their mouths. Wang's coal mine is called a black coal mine by local people outside. The miners are black, the supervisors have black hands, and the owner has a black heart. It is truly black. For people like Tan Liangdong, don't think about getting out after entering the coal mine. The heavy physical work drains all your energy, and just enough food to satisfy your hunger prevents you from starving to death. As more and more refugees fled from the West, there were more and more refugee miners in the Wang coal mine. In order to legitimately use these cheap labor forces, the Wang family managed the Dingguan Inspection Department and Yomining Prefecture, Lisher, inspection department located in Zhengdu, turning the refugees into miners in their own mines. In order to prevent the miners from causing trouble, the Wang family asked the Dingguan Inspection Department to send 50 soldiers together with their own 50 miners to suppress the miners. In September, the originally warm weather suddenly turned cold. The miners basically wore single clothes, so they could not withstand the cold. At night, near the mine, miners who can't stand the cold wind gather together to keep each other warm. "No, if we continue like this, we will freeze to death." "Well, we need to talk to the person in charge." A miner who is usually quite prestigious among the crowd suggested. "I must say, we are not allowed to light fires, and we are not allowed to wear cotton-padded clothes. What is the reason for this?" People agreed one after another. As the news spread, miners from other places also gathered around. Finally, everyone elected 3 representatives to talk to the supervisor on behalf of the miners. Tam Liangdong squeezed into the crowd, using the crowd to keep warm. He listened to everyone's discussions, but he was thinking about other things. In 2 months, the coal mine where Tam Liangdong worked increased from more than 20 miners at the beginning to 63 now, and the number of miners guarding it also increased to 12, and it is said that there are also 2 officers and soldiers. Most of these 63 miners were refugees from Shaanxi, and a small number were local farmers who owed usury to the Wang family. While the crowd was not paying attention, Lao Wudo called Tan Liangdong and Lao Xie aside and whispered, "Be careful. I think something will happen in the mine tomorrow. You too should be smart and don't interfere blindly." Lao Xie was a little surprised. "That's not it. We're just digging a mine, this." Tam Liangdong said solemnly, "Brother Wu is right, Brother Xie. You still remember those miners who didn't want to work were driven back by whips a few days ago. The old Wang family has bad intentions in trapping us people here." Thinking of what happened in the past month, Lao Xie looked worried. The supervisors withheld food more and more frequently, and the work was getting heavier and heavier. The most worrying thing was that the entire coal mine was blocked by the Wang family. Lao Xie, who had been pretending not to know about this some time ago, became panicked. Chapter 3:3 Unusual Movement, Killing of Good People. 3 people who petitioned on behalf of the miners saw the steward. As soon as they started talking, the steward immediately blasted them out and threatened the 3 of them that if they dared to come to him again, they would be whipped. After the miners learned what happened to the representatives, they stopped what they were doing and slowly gathered around the 3 men. When the supervisor who had been watching the miners saw this, he immediately stepped forward, waved the whip in his hand, and shouted, "What do you want to do? Go back to work." A miner standing outside was hit by a whip and fell to the ground, wailing loudly. The other miners heard the screams and stepped back. Seeing that everyone was frightened, the supervisor continued to shout, "Go back to work. Do you also want to taste what it's like to lie on the ground, huh?" After saying that, he whipped the miner who fell on the ground. After being whipped for the 2nd time, the miner who was knocked down stopped wailing and shouted, "Mother, I will fight with you." He hugged the overseer's legs with both arms and pulled hard, and the overseer was dragged to the ground. The miners who were forced to retreat saw the overseer lying on the ground and struggling to get up. Everyone looked at each other and remembered the whips they had received in the past. The other miners who had been threatened and retreated by the overseers were incited by this and rushed forward with the overseer's whip. The scene became chaotic, and the overseers and miners struggled with each other. When the 2 officers and soldiers who were relatively far away saw this, they immediately drew their swords and ran past while shouting, "Squat down, everyone squats down. Do you hear me? Everyone squat down." With a cheese sound, the knife in the officer's hand slashed a miner's waist, and the blood spattered with the knife sprinkled on the surrounding miners and supervisors. Everyone was frightened. Both the miners and the supervisors squatted down. The officers and soldiers called out the supervisors from the crowd, asked them to carry away the supervisor who had been beaten unconscious, and then slowly retreated with their knives. The 2 officers and soldiers often suppressed the troublemakers, knowing that the miners were only temporarily frightened, so they quickly retreated. The Wang family's small coal mine is only connected to the outside world by a trail, and the shopkeeper in charge of the coal mine has set up a checkpoint here. The officers, soldiers, and supervisors returned to the checkpoint. When the supervisor who was hiding in the checkpoint saw the supervisor who was beaten unconscious, he said angrily, "You thieves! How dare you make trouble? I will stop their food rations and starve them to death." "You're crazy!" A soldier slapped his knife on the table. "If the miners there don't get rations today, they will kill you right away. You don't want your life." "Then what can be done?" the steward asked angrily. "Let me tell you, rations must still be given, but at the rate of 1 steamed bun per person. Find a brave man, put down the steamed buns and run away, and leave it alone. Well, there is no way for the miners to work now anyway, so let them rob each other. Whoever robs, more will be full. As for you, go back and ask your boss what to do. We 2 brothers will help you watch here." The manager had no choice but to do what the soldiers said first. In the evening, A supervisor carried a basket of steamed buns, looked around, found a deserted place, shouted, "Dinner is ready," and immediately turned around and ran away. The miners followed the sound and found the steamed buns. According to past habits, each of them took 3. Soon, the people who arrived first finished the steamed buns in the basket. The people who arrived later stared at the empty bamboo baskets and asked, "Are there any more?" Others searched around, hoping to find other bamboo baskets. After searching for a long time with no results, everyone suddenly realized that there was only one basket of steamed buns. The miner who got 3 steamed buns also realized this and quickly stuffed the steamed buns in his hand into his mouth. The miners who didn't get the steamed buns looked at the miners who got the steamed buns, with fire in their eyes. Someone shouted, "Grab." The miners who hadn't finished eating the steamed buns were immediately surrounded, and the steamed buns in their hands were snatched away. Some even had the steamed buns stuffed in their mouths pulled out. The scene was very chaotic. Tam Liangdong was one of the last people who didn't get the steamed buns, so he also joined the fight. Unfortunately, he only managed to grab a few steamed bun crumbs after a long fight. After all the steamed buns were eaten, the scene returned to calm, but the atmosphere in the entire mine became increasingly tense. Lao Wudo, Lao Xie, and Tam Liangdong gathered together. Lao Wudo said, "There is going to be chaos in the mine. The 3 of us must always be together and not be left alone.